and then turn it over to Councilmember Burdetta Hodge.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, I'm Councilmember Burdetta Hodge, and I just wanted to say from my other three colleagues, Councilmember Amber and Councilmember Keaton, that I strongly support the city's proposal of this heat ordinance. It's vitally important and timely for us to act on this due to the fact that we have so much of a high climate of heat in Arizona, and the fact that Tempe is pioneers when it comes to looking out for what's best for our workers in our city and the people who work within our city. So as I said, it's only been a couple of different cities have passed this ordinance, and I would be honored and proud to see it go past in our city of Tempe. And I will pass this over to Carissa.
Thank you so much. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today about a new policy focused on heat safety for Tempe and contract workers. So over the past few months, a subcommittee opened by Councilmember Randy Keating has been working to develop this policy. So we're really excited to share it with you in our Tempe community today and get feedback. So my name is Carissa Fowler, and I am representing the Sustainability and Resilience Division. And I'll be taking you through the beginning part of the presentation today, and then Keaton Hill will take us the rest of the way. Next slide, please. So to give an overview of why this is important, we look to Maricopa County's heat-related death reports and National Weather Service trends. And it's no surprise, as I'm sure that we feel it every year, that it's getting hotter and hotter, with days over 100 and 110 degrees increasing every year. In 2024, we saw 602 heat-related deaths, just a mere drop from 645 in 2023, with 77% of those deaths happening outdoors. So as you can see on the graph on the right, heat-related deaths have increased dramatically in the last decade, really highlighting the importance of having safety measures in place for those working outside during the summertime. Next slide. So let's take a little bit of a moment to review what is currently in place for heat safety. So at the state level, the state of Arizona established a state emphasis program that encourages employers to have plans in place to reduce heat-related deaths. But there is no standard or regulation in place to really mitigate heat-related illnesses in the workplace in Arizona. And then moving on to federal regulation, OSHA has published an advance notice of proposed rulemaking to address heat safety, but on January 20th, the new administration has directed agencies to refrain from proposing any new rules. And thus, an occupational heat safety guidelines at the federal level remains uncertain. So these two things considered, there is more room for cities to get involved in ensuring that we have occupational heat safety in the workplace. Next slide. In Tempe, we have two strategic priorities that touch the work of heat safety: one, quality of life, community health and well-being, and two, sustainability, sustainable growth and development, specifically urban cooling. So because these are our strategic priorities, and due to the lack of heat safety guidelines at the state and federal level, the city of Tempe is taking on our own initiatives through this proposed heat safety policy. Next slide. Other cities and counties across the state are also taking matters into their own hands, with 3 ordinances being passed in 2024 for outdoor worker heat safety. First Phoenix in March, then Tucson, then Maricopa County, or I'm sorry, then Pima County. Next slide. So during Phoenix, Tucson's, and Pima County's ordinance development, the city of Tempe last year began its exploration of what an outdoor worker heat safety policy can look like for us. So in May of 2024, the Sustainability and Resilience Division hosted an outdoor worker appreciation event for City of Tempe workers. This event was held at 4 different locations, and of course was intended to show appreciation, but to also gather feedback from our outdoor workers on current heat safety practices. We wanted to make sure that the city of Tempe has their ducks in a row before asking contractors to have their ducks in a row. So we got 147 really great survey responses, with the survey asking about AC in vehicles, available PPE, access to water, and if heat training they received felt adequate. And overall, there was really positive feedback, with a few mentions of opportunities for extended breaks, providing shade if not already available, and focus training on what PPE is available to them as opposed to just heat illnesses. So since the event, the city has taken this work even further, establishing a subcommittee and developing a new outdoor worker heat safety policy. So on that, pass it over to Keaton Hill.
Thank you, Carissa. Thank you so much for Tempe's Transportation and Sustainability Department's work on this ordinance. Carissa has been invaluable. So my name is Keaton Hill. I am Councilmember Randy Keating's assistant. And Councilmember Randy Keating first proposed the subcommittee. He was approached by some stakeholders who assisted with Phoenix and Tucson ordinances. And this effort really capitalizes on some of the work that was done last year by Carissa's team with heat mitigation efforts in Tempe. And so earlier this year, Councilmember Keating formed the subcommittee, and then also Councilmember Nikki Amberg and Councilmember Burdetta Hodge, who we just heard from, their contribution. They were included in the subcommittee and asked to join, and their contribution has been invaluable in crafting this ordinance. So just a quick timeline on how we got here. In January, Councilmember Keating formed the subcommittee. In February, Councilmember Keating's office, myself and Councilmember Keating conducted some research. We spoke with other municipalities that crafted this ordinance and gathered some good suggestions and input on how to craft an ordinance in Tempe. In March, the very first subcommittee meeting commenced, and the subcommittee directed staff to then draft an ordinance. Then also in April, the ordinance received unanimous support from the Sustainability and Resilience Commission here in Tempe. And then also, just soon after, the subcommittee approved moving forward the drafted ordinance to public comment, which is where we are today. One thing I just want to note as we move forward with this presentation, the ordinance is still in draft. The public comment period is really important for the city to craft the best type of ordinance. And so we really appreciate input from those participating. Also, the subcommittee relied heavily on input from others in crafting this ordinance. So in January and February, Councilmember Keating met with several different labor groups across the state, as well as some heat safety focus groups. Then also in February and March, Councilmember Keating's office met with several of the city departments. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen here, there are several departments that are impacted by this ordinance. So there those that lead these departments, the directors, have been instrumental in creating this, and they continue to be crucial in fine-tuning this ordinance. And so just a quick review before we get into the bulk of the ordinance on some of the remaining steps. Public input is today. We'll later talk about a meeting that's later tonight at 6 o'clock. That'll be at the Tempe History Museum. Then on May 12th, there will be a final subcommittee meeting. Following that, the subcommittee will move to a work study session where the council, as a committee of a whole, if they would like to move forward, consider that and then do that on May 15th. And then on May 22nd, there would be a first hearing or a public hearing that would occur at a regular council meeting. And then there would be adoption and a council vote at the regular council meeting on June 5th. Again, if the council decides to move forward with this. So quick, before we go over to the heat safety plans and what those mean, the ordinance does create some definitions. So a few that I would just point out is outdoor environment is expansive. The language does include nearly everything that doesn't, nearly anything that's not air conditioned. Also, shade is defined. It needs to be an area where workers can be cooled, meaning a hot car would not qualify as shade. And then the ordinance also excludes employees not regularly working outside. If the city were to like contract with an IT company, for example, that vendor would not need to produce a heat safety plan. Now we get into the nuts and bolts of the ordinance. Essentially what the ordinance does is contractors contracted by the city of Tempe would need to create and follow a heat safety plan to protect their outside employees. The ordinance has about 8 to 10 requirements for these plans, which we will review today. The city may request these plans at any time, and these plans need to be accessible to employees. So some of the items that are listed on the heat safety plans, and so some of the requirements for contractors to include would be free and clean drinking water that's accessible to employees during rest and meal breaks. Also, the ability to take regular breaks when the National Weather Service issues a heat advisory. The National Weather Service was decided upon because it is a measuring stick that takes humidity into account. And then also, I do want to highlight that Councilmember Amberg had some really great input. And so in the ordinance, there are suggestions to include longer break periods for heat intensified areas. It's a suggestion, but that would help workers that are working on asphalt or helping create our really important infrastructure in our roads here in the city. So additional requirements in the heat safety plans that contractors would need to include in those plans would be shade being available when temperatures exceed 90 degrees. That vehicles with enclosed cabs have air conditioning. And then also the heat safety plans have acclimation practices for new workers. One of the things that ADOS recommends is beginning the first day with 20% heat exposure, and then every subsequent day increasing that load by another 20%. Additionally, heat safety plans need to include some monitoring practices, communication protocols, and then regular heat safety training for outdoor employees. One thing I would note is that when Pima County was crafting this ordinance, these were suggestions by the Attorney General's office, and Attorney General Chris Mays has put a real importance and emphasis on heat safety in her work. In an effort to ensure workers know their rights, contractors will need to notify their workers via 2 methods of these protections. One would be the postage of signage on job sites in both English and Spanish, and then also employees that are current employees would need to be notified regarding their new protections, and then also new employees would need to be notified during the onboarding process as well. And that would be in the language preferred by that worker. The city bears some of the administrative responsibility for this ordinance. And so if this ordinance were to move forward, the city would include heat safety plans in future contracts. I would want to emphasize future contracts. What that means is if there is if let's say a June 5th, there was to be that adoption, and then 30 days later it were to be implemented. If there was an ongoing contract, those workers or those contractors would not bear responsibility in creating a heat safety plan. It would be future contracts. Also, if contractors violate these plans, the city has a built-in pathway to report these violations to OSHA or ADOS. One of the things that we want to highlight, and that's one of Councilmember Keating's crown jewels in crafting this ordinance, and it's very unique to Tempe, is the qualifications-based solicitations. And so what this does is it would add quality of heat safety plans and compliance with past heat safety plans as a factor of consideration when evaluating contractors and during the scoring process and when those contractors are awarded or potentially are awarded contracts. What that does is it keeps the ordinance less compliance focused, but more reward focused. And so those who have comprehensive heat safety plans have a type of reward built in for the quality of those plans. Also, the ordinance includes whistleblower protections. And so workers who, it shall be considered a violation of this section for a contractor to retaliate or discriminate against an employee if they did file a type of complaint. And then lastly, city workers. So this portion of the ordinance exists because the city of Tempe wants to demonstrate its level of commitment. Again, the city follows these protocols, but they are not codified. What this ordinance would do is it would codify some of the rules that the city already has in place. And then it would require departments to also adopt heat safety plans. Also, city employees would have the same access to reporting and whistleblower protections. Just a review on next steps. Again, the next step would be a final subcommittee on May 12th, and then we would move forward with the committee of the whole, and they would, approve advancing the ordinance on May 15th. And then we want to invite everyone to participate. The public input process is still moving forward. So there are 2 meetings today. One is the meeting we are in right now, and then at 6 p.m. at the Tempe History Museum, a similar presentation will be given, and we invite folks to participate. If you haven't contributed yet, at tempe.gov/form, there's an ability to make some public comment, and those would be considered as we move forward with the ordinance. So I just want to thank everyone's participation and all the directors and everyone who work outside. This is something that's aimed to protect the workers of Tempe and those who are in Tempe. And as it's getting hotter, this is becoming more and more important. And Councilmember Keating, I would like to extend his gratitude to everyone who's helped put this together. Apart from that, we can open it up to questions.
So please put questions in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, we can call on you. Your raise hand will be under the React button on the bottom of your screen. Yes, Maxwell.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all the work that you guys are doing on this and all the work that you've been doing on this, Keaton. I just wanted to, or 2 things just occurred to me that I wanted to ask about or raise. One is, I know that when Phoenix passed a similar ordinance, there was a similar question about applying the ordinance prospectively only, like the future contracts only, or to existing contracts. And somehow they managed to apply it to existing contracts. And we raised this question with them of whether they could do it, and they actually felt very confident they could. So I just raised that, since obviously applying it only to future contracts will delay implementation for a fair number of workers for a while. I just raised that because it might be worth discussing with city attorneys in Phoenix. There might have been a particular situation with the way they've written their contracts, but it just might be worth consulting. And the one other thing I would note is the retaliation, with regard to the retaliation language. I'm wondering, when you guys write, when it says that filing a complaint, the retaliation or discrimination for filing a complaint, would be against the ordinance or violate the ordinance. Would filing a complaint also include raising a complaint to one's manager or to another person beginning to talk about the issues? I guess I wonder how broad that is, or whether that would only include if you formally file something with the city of Tempe. And so, yeah, I was curious what the understanding of that section would be.
I know that Eric is not online, but is there someone from the city attorney's office that can help?
What part of that question did you want me to?
Probably probably both portions. I know that Eric, the city attorney, isn't available. Max, we've been meeting with the directors met all last week, and we are again going to meet today. It was reiterated that our understanding was that the ordinance would apply to future contracts, but that will be another discussion item that I'll make sure that we include in today's meeting. And then in that second portion, David, I think Max's question was about if would there be whistleblower protections if folks were to simply raise a concern to a manager and not necessarily ADOSH or OSHA.
With regard to whether it would apply to existing contracts, I mean, it certainly isn't a part of those existing contracts. You'd have to look at the language in there. It would have to be negotiated. It could. I don't think it could automatically be inserted into any contract. The parties have agreed to those terms as they stand now. I don't think we could unilaterally fundamentally change any particular term without some negotiation with the contractor. So I don't think that there's any way that it can be automatically be implemented into those contracts. I do think there are probably ways that it can be negotiated into those contracts. But I don't think that that through passing an ordinance, we can automatically insert it to any existing contracts. I don't think we can do that. With regard to the complaint, it's our looks like our non-retaliation language is filing a complaint, a report or a complaint with the city alleging violations under that article. So if as it's defined, it does not look like it would include internal complaints or complaints to others that aren't the city. If I'm reading that correctly, it says it shall be considered a violation of this section for the contractor to retaliate or otherwise discriminate against any employee because the person filed a report or complaint with the city alleging violations of this article or otherwise asserted. So as it's written, it would only apply to complaints made to the city.
If you could just shoot myself, Councilmember Keating, and subcommittee members just an email with those items, and we can discuss that in the director's meeting later.
Great, thank you guys.
Okay, are there other questions? I don't see any in the chat yet. If there are no other questions, Keaton, did you want to go back to kind of next steps so they can see the calendar again?
Yeah, just to reemphasize next steps, there is a meeting tonight at the Tempe History Museum, and that is at 6 p.m., 809 East Southern Ave. And then on May 12th, there will be a final subcommittee meeting to review some of the public input. And then I just want to emphasize again, if for whatever reason there's a question that pops up later, please participate in the online survey, and that's at tempe.gov/form.
And that direct link is also in the chat. So we appreciate your time today. and enjoy the rest of your day.